general good. I think this is probably the year that the most people found the most highly analogous case, which was United States v. Johnson. Some people found the district court case, which is not just for two reasons. One is the district court case gets reversed, so it's not good law. But also your instructions are only cite Supreme Court cases and United States Court of Appeals from the D.C. Circuit. Don't cite district court cases from D.C. Actually, before we get to the discussion, let's talk what should be in each section and what all the sections should be. So this should be a review because we did this for the first memo, but now we're going to do it again. You should have a question presented and a short answer. Somewhere in that question presented and a short answer, you want to do at least four things. Number one, you want to have at least a sentence with sufficient facts about the Summers note. Now, you don't have to call it the Summers note, you don't have to quote the Summers note, but you got to tell the reader in at least one sentence, what is the evidence that was withheld, or that was arguably withheld? What is the evidence that's in question? That's number one. You should also have the three-part Brady test. It doesn't have to be three separate sentences. It can be one sentence. You can do it in about 4 words, but it needs to be there. Third thing that you need to convey is a clear answer. So if the clear answer is there probably is a successful Brady claim here, say that. I think everyone did that successfully. And then the fourth thing you want to aim for is begin to persuade. You've got limited space, limited words here, but to the extent you can begin to make your reader believe that your answer is the correct answer, you want to do that. Next section is the facts section. I recommend writing it last. That way, once you've written your discussion, you can circle all the facts that you mention in your discussion, make sure those facts go in your facts section. And you can also avoid using a whole lot of facts in your facts section that aren't later used in your discussion section. Don't over-particularize. Go for a logical structure. Usually that will mean chronological order, and I think that makes sense in our case. And then you're on to the discussion section. Discussion section should begin with an opening paragraph before you get to any subsections. You call it an introductory paragraph, an overview paragraph, an umbrella paragraph. I mean, don't actually label any of those things in your actual memo. Just write a paragraph. It should once again have the 3-part Brady test in it. And it should have a summary of your answer. In subsection 1, and it doesn't matter to me whether subsection 1 is favorability or withheld. Subsection 1 should have CREAC. Now, favorability is such a straightforward analysis in our case that you may only need 2 or 3 sentences. And so you may kind of conflate the C and the RE, and you may kind of conflate the A and the C. But we need, one second, I'll come back to you later. You want to cite to the part of the test. You want to keep the focus on the part of the test. When you're doing favorability subsection, just talk about favorability. Make sure you explain the rule before you apply the rule. That's what matters most for CREAC in these really short subsections. Explain the rule, apply the rule. Yeah, Leah?
So in the umbrella paragraph, should we be using CREAC when we talk like as an overall, this is the test, it needs all 3 kind of thing, or just say, answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so the answer is yes, but what you just described is really what's up there too. Because what is rule explanation, which is the 3-part Brady test, and what is rule application? It's the answer to whether or not we satisfy the 3-part Brady test.
Okay.
So after your favorability subsection, your withheld subsection will look very similar, maybe a sentence or 2 longer. Once again, cite to that part of the test. Keep the focus on that part of the test. You might explain that, what does it mean for evidence to be withheld? Well, whether it's intentional or not, it's still withheld. And then after you've explained the rule, apply the rule. Now, whereas these are going to be 2, 3, 4 sentences apiece, these subsections, your your subsection about whether the evidence is material, it's going to be 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, maybe 5 paragraphs. 2.5 pages, 2 to 2.5 pages maybe. Because it will take that long to do all of this. Once again, begin by citing to this particular part of the test, and keep the focus on just this part of the test. What does material mean? Well, it means reasonable probability that the outcome at trial would have been different. You use that phrase, reasonable probability. It lets the reader know that you have to show that there's more than just a mere chance the outcome at trial would have been different with this new evidence, but you don't have to show that we're certain the outcome at trial would have been different with this new evidence. And that matters. If you've read any of these Brady cases, Kyles v. Whitley comes to mind. You know, who knows whether that guy committed the murder? Like, I think there's a pretty decent chance he did. But you know, what are the chances? Like, he had the exact same cat food as the lady who he murdered and stole her cat food. I mean, there's a lot of coincidences there. But had this evidence been in there, is there a reasonable probability that the jury would have acquitted? I think the majority makes a decent argument that there's, whatever, 30% chance the jury would have acquitted, 40% chance. And under Brady, it's not. I wish the court would use specific percentages when they're talking about what reasonable probability means, but they don't, so you shouldn't either. Okay, so Sharia.
So we don't have class next Friday, right?
Yeah, we don't.
And we have to like meet with you?
Yes, yes.
How do we sign up?
I'll have a sign-up sheet out next week.
And it's either Thursday or Friday next week.
Yes, although I think that the Thursday times are going to be pretty limited. And I may make it, I'm going to have to look at the schedule, I may make it so that it's Thursday, Friday, or Monday. And I may make it so that if anybody wants to meet Thursday, Friday, they can. Like, I'll have enough slots. I got to check on this. But that if you're not in a hurry, then there'll be Monday slots. And that will, so yeah. Friday's my wife's birthday, and we also are going to a show with our daughter, to like some kids show at the Palace that night. So I can't be here until like 8:30 at night, which I would normally I would do if that's what people. Usually if somebody wants to stay till 8:30 as opposed to wait till Monday, I'll stay till 8:30. But I can get here as early as you want to get here on Monday. So 4 a.m. works for you. Can you please let me know?
Yes.
Okay, so we were doing rule explanation for materiality, but you're not just done when you explain reasonable probability. You also, part of your rule explanation is going to be using United States v. Johnson. Not yet comparing United States v. Johnson to our case, just saying, oh, hey reader, you want to know what materiality looks like? Let me tell you what it looked like in United States v. Johnson. It's still rule explanation. You're just explaining the rule, and you're using United States v. Johnson to help you explain it. Then you transition from rule explanation to rule application. Now that you've explained the rule, you apply the rule, and that involves two things. A good comparison between Maitland and Johnson. And obviously, I mean, a good comparison between the evidence and the withheld evidence in Maitland and the withheld evidence in Johnson. Say the reader, how do we know that the evidence in Maitland is material? Because it's very similar to the evidence in Johnson, and the court already told us that that evidence is material, was material in Johnson. And then also a good weighing of the strengths and weaknesses of the government's case, because that's what materiality is. The court kind of puts itself in the jury box of a hypothetical trial that looks a lot like the first trial, except now there's this new evidence injected into it and weigh the strengths and weaknesses. I told this example, one second, don't be afraid. I know this example to a lot of groups, but not all groups. When you're weighing the strengths and weaknesses of the government's case, imagine in the back of your head two scenarios. Imagine, okay, there's a guy tried for murder, and we later find out that an eyewitness who said, I saw this defendant commit the murder, we later find out that eyewitness once committed perjury before. Is that going to be material or not material? Well, you don't yet know. You don't yet know, because you don't know how strong the government's case was to begin with. If the government only had one piece of evidence that the defendant committed murder, and it was the eyewitness testimony of this, liar, then yeah, that evidence is definitely the material. Reasonable probability the jury would have acquitted if they found out the government's only eyewitness was someone who committed perjury in the past? Yeah, I think reasonable probability they would have acquitted. But imagine a different scenario where the original trial there was videotape of the guy committing the murder and there were 14 eyewitnesses and the defendant confessed to the murder, and now we find out that one of those 14 eyewitnesses committed perjury in the past. Well, who cares? There's still more than enough evidence to convict. There's not a reasonable probability that the outcome of the trial would have been different. Same withheld evidence, but different outcome on whether materiality is. That weighing of the streaks of weakness is the government's case. That's what a great materiality section will include. Yeah, Emily.
It's more like a procedure question because we haven't really had it yet. When it gets back, if it does go back to trial, do you do the same jury?
No. Gary? Good question. Other questions? That's also, hopefully in your research you found, not you specifically, but just people in general, that you don't have to go into this in your memo. But if you succeed on a Brady claim, the remedy is that that your original conviction gets thrown out the window, and then the government can either try you again, or they can not try you again. Feel free. Or the most likely scenario is the government would offer you a plea bargain and try to avoid another trial. Okay, and then you should, after your discussion section, you should have a conclusion section. But your conclusion section can be just one sentence. It's only a 5-page memo. There's no need for a super long conclusion section to come up with. You think that it didn't take that long to say in the first place. And you don't have a lot of space. Do not go over the page limit. I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but it should matter to you because it's going to affect your grade. So, in your interest, not go over the page limit. All right, I feel like I've been talking at you a lot, so sometimes it's just that way. It's not my favorite way to do a class. Let's watch some videos. Each one's about a minute long.